All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Happy Friday. I hope everybody is doing well. First off, if you can hear me okay, if the volume's all right, please put a one in the chat. Just make sure everything's going smooth. And let me just check my settings, make sure everything's good. Perfect. All right. So, again, I hope everyone's doing well. I apologize, I missed Wednesday. I put out a video on Monday in regards to the Brian Kober case. I think most of you guys are familiar with it if you followed my live shows. But if you missed the video and if you're interested in Idaho 4 case, please go check that out after the live show, of course. I put a lot of time into that. That's like months of work put into one video. And I'm happy with it, but I kind of overdid myself because I was sitting in the chair for so long. And yes, as most of you know, I've been having some issues with my feet. It's kind of a nerve thing and circulation. Long story short, obviously I need to exercise, and the more I sit in the chair and work, it does kind of bother me. So I have to kind of find a happy medium. But anyway, I am doing well. And today we're going to be covering the Kansas City 3, going over the latest updates and details, some interviews with some interesting information. But before we get started, we always like to feature the missing. So we'll do that real quick, and then we'll get into the Kansas City. Real quick, though, I just want to shout out, make sure there we go. Make sure that's working. Perfect. Southern Gal True Crime, member for 9 months. Congratulations and thank you so much. Glad to be a part of this awesome community. Thank you so much. Yes, we have amazing community. Also, Gail Hurd with 6 months, who's also been given a lot of gifted memberships. Thank you so much, Gail, for your continued support. She says, God bless you all. Stay safe. June, just be careful. I don't know why. It looks like Nightbot is going after June, and I don't know why. That must be some kind of thing with sometimes Nightbot, or it's not Nightbot. It's actually YouTube. I don't know. There's always some issues. I apologize, June. Hopefully, it happened to somebody else. Hopefully it'll work itself out tomorrow or the next day. I do apologize for that. So let's get started. Today's missing person is Jesse Lee Farber. Goes by, I think, Jesse Rex. This is an interesting story. This was brought to me by one of my mods, Karen, who's a big advocate for the missing. We'll just quickly go over his story. He's just 29 years old. Hopefully I pronounced that right. 5'6", 135 pounds. He went missing under some really bizarre circumstances. It was actually so bizarre. Usually I just read from the notes, but I'm actually going to pull up part of the story. This may be something we may cover because it is very fascinating and strange. So his disappearance was, let's see, I'm just looking at the date here. Wow, almost 9 years. Yeah, almost 9 years ago. On August 11, 2015, Jesse told his coworkers that he would be headed to work. He had first planned on meeting with the woman's boyfriend, who Jesse claimed stole his money, at a local Burger King at Tumakwa, but never showed up. His whereabouts were unknown from 12 p.m. to 9 p.m. Jesse's phone records show that he made multiple calls to his bank to figure out his balance. He shouldn't have been expecting any payments as he got paid bi-weekly every Friday. At 9 p.m., Jesse made a bizarre phone call to his ex-girlfriend, I believe, Rachel. He was frantic and told her he was being chased by 10 to 11 coyotes. His phone was about to die, and he was up in a tree. He asked Rachel to come get him and bring guns. Rachel reported he seemed terrified in the call, almost as if he was about to cry. During the call, he initially told Rachel he was by the Tumakwa Elementary School, and then later said that he was near the high school. The two schools are on opposite sides of the town. Rachel asked for his exact location, which he wouldn't have known, but the call dropped. Which he would have known, sorry, but the call dropped. She called him back numerous times, but he never answered again. I'm assuming because the phone died. Ever since that, he went missing. Search and rescue teams have been out there looking for him. There's a lot more here. I would normally go over if it was a regular show. Some theories. They said that he had a drug-induced hallucination. Another theory is that he was actually chased by coyotes. And the third one, Jason was being chased by a street gang named Coyotes. Rumors were spreading that Jesse may have been talking about coyotes for slang as the street gang, as he allegedly owed money to. So, kind of a wild story. And if things get slow or something, we may have to maybe look into that a little bit more. But thank you, Karen, and prayers to the family, and hopefully they get answers. All right, let's move on to the Kansas City 3. We'll just recap the story for anybody that's maybe have not heard of this. I assume this case may get bigger since Kansas City Chiefs are going to be playing in the Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. Is it this Sunday, right? February 11th. Yeah, 2 days. That's crazy. All right, so we will just recap the people involved, and then we'll get into some of the latest details. There's been some interviews with the family members. There was talk about, I don't want to get too ahead, but let's just talk about the people that were involved. So we have Ricky Allen Johnson. So we have 5 friends that went to, that were involved in an incident. This is Ricky Johnson. He was 38. Went to the Park Hill South High School. He was father of 3 daughters. David Harrington, and these 3 men that I'm going to mention are the 3 men that were found frozen to death. Number 2 was David Harrington. He was 37. He also attended the same high school. He had a wife, which is very tragic. And then the 3rd victim here is Clayton McGinney, 36. He too, I think, went to the same high school. He also had a fiancée and a daughter. And we'll kind of hear more about the fiancée, because the fiancée is the one who ended up finding the 3 men. Then we have, which was originally unknown to us, the unknown 5th person at this party. This is Alex Lee. He was also good friends with all 5. He was also at the party, but he left kind of early, while the others obviously stayed there. But he also went to the same high school as Johnson, McGinney, and Harrington. This is Alex Lee. Originally, you've seen probably photos where they have these 2 guys blurred out, but this guy is the 5th unknown originally. And then we have the homeowner, home renter, Jordan Willis. He hosted the party with the other 4 men. He is a HIV scientist who works from home. I actually found his, I don't know if it's his website, but there's a site which kind of gives like an explanation of like what he's done. There's like some questions. If we get some time, we'll look at it. It's kind of interesting. And it actually talks about the 2 dogs that he has and their names. So I did find that was kind of interesting. Let me just check in the chat here. So that's the 5 people. So this incident happened on January 7th, at the beginning of this year. Obviously, a group of fans got together to watch. Now, this is weird because I've seen 2 sides where they say that they were watching the game together, like this is a watch party. And then the attorney for Jordan Willis, his statement says that the guys got there just after the game. So I don't know if this is an after-watch party where, the Chiefs win and so they go to celebrate, or if they were there and all watching the game. I don't know. Let me know in the chat if you guys, if there's any locals that have maybe know this. There's obviously going to be plenty of stuff that I may have missed. Anyway, so after they supposedly have this party, Alex, the unknown guy, he leaves, and the other three men supposedly, stay the night. According to Jordan, or his attorney, we'll read his statement here. So according to, let's see, where is it? According to Willis's statement, let me find it here, is that he said that McGinney, Harrington, and Johnson were still conscious when he left Willis's home. Oh, so this is the fourth guest, Alex. The fourth guest insisted to the news that he was not the last person to see the three men alive, despite what Willis says. During that time, Willis did not receive any phone calls or texts from people looking for his friends who had not been heard from since going to Willis's home. The attorney statement said Willis did not immediately see one direct message sent to him. So he basically said that Willis basically claimed that he originally saw the three men still alive downstairs, and that they actually, I think originally that he saw them leave, and that he was slept on the couch, and then he changed the story that they were still down there, and he actually went up to his bed. So he changed the story twice. So going with his latest statement that the three men were still downstairs, he goes up to bed. Alex, the fifth guy, he leaves. And then according to Alex, he said that when he left, all four guys were watching Jeopardy as he left. So, and we kind of talked about that. That was kind of odd. But during the timeline, so here is just kind of a calendar just to kind of show you guys. So the game was on the 7th, where they watched the game, and then supposedly have an after party. And Alex had saw them, I think he left just around midnight, and supposedly said that all four men were still up and alive. Then we have Willis, the home renter, going to bed and leaving the three men downstairs. He said that, according to his attorney's statement, that on Monday he did get up at some point. He did do a little bit of work because he works from home. Keep in mind now that the three bodies would have been outside frozen, and two of the vehicles would have been in the front yard. And there's talk about the two dogs, which we'll definitely talk about, whether they were there or not, because there's been back and forth on whether Willis's two, I think, pit bulls were there or not. And I think we do have the answer. But apparently he says he works a little bit, and then he slept for most of the day. And then, not sure about Tuesday, but literally the families are obviously worried. Finally, the fiancée of, was it McGinney? Let me go back here. Yeah, the fiancée of McGinney, this guy here, got so worried. That was very late on January 9th that she actually ended up breaking into the home and was shouting out Willis's name. He did not respond, and then discovered the bodies in the backyard, and then immediately called the police. And then, of course, Willis answered the door when the police arrived, and he apparently was in his boxers and had a wine glass. So that's just kind of a little recap of the story, but there's a lot more updates and a few answers to questions like were the dogs there and stuff, and we do have those as well. So let me get the video ready, and then that way I can get to chat here. And let me go back here. Let's see here. Heather, whatever. I heard after game elsewhere. Yeah, I've heard both. As a matter of fact, if you pull up, I'll get to the video here in a second, but this came from, forget the source, but it's a pretty big source. I can't think of it, but I will. At the top here, it says January 7th, 3:25, official start time of the game for Chiefs against the Los Angeles Chargers. And then it says 6:30, the Chiefs defeat the Chargers. Final score 13-12. It's a very close game. That Johnson, Harrington, and McGinney, the three guys, arrive at the home of Willis some point after the game, says Willis's lawyer, John Pincero. So I guess, according to the lawyer, he says it was after. And then apparently Alex Lee, the fifth guy, he arrives 30 minutes later. So, yeah, kind of interesting. Oops, I was trying to get to this. Too much focus on him holding a wine glass. Why? Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just because that stuck out to them or something. Yeah, it's just weird that he'd walk up and open the door with the wine glass. I don't know. Anyway, so let's get into the video. There's a lot of updates, a lot of interviews with some family members, some friends, and then, of course, I haven't covered this for about maybe 2 weeks, I think, something like that, maybe a little less. And I said I wanted to do an update when we got the toxicology report. The toxicology report has been out, hasn't been released to the public yet, although we do have the details, generic details of what the toxicology report is. So we'll definitely cover that and much more. Yeah, he has eyes on heaven, definitely.
It's extremely devastating. The whole family's messed up. He was just...
Okay, let me center this for you guys real quick here. And like I said, this has got some interviews from family members, a little bit of everything here I kind of put together for you guys. Let me know how the volume is.
Such a good person.
Sudden and unexplainable grief for the McGinney family as they try to understand what led to the death of 36-year-old Clayton McGinney and two of his friends. They were found dead in their friend's backyard 2 days after watching the Chiefs' last regular season game, January 7th.
It's got a lot of holes in it. Last time we saw them, they were leaving the house, but he didn't know that they had left, so that doesn't make much sense.
Contrary to a Saturday statement released by John Paserno on behalf of his client Jordan Willis, Paserno says Willis went to sleep and never saw the men leave.
When he would have people over his house sometimes, as people do, they get tired. There are people who are very close to you, and then you feel comfortable
going to bed and
allowing them to leave whenever they want to leave.
Paserno says Willis never left his home once he got back there on Sunday. That's why he didn't notice the men's cars were still there. Paserno also claims that his client didn't hear anyone banging on the door over 2 days, nor did he hear McGinney's fiancée break in and scream his name.
So suspicious.
But minutes later, he did hear police knock on the door.
None of us know what happened to these individuals, and I think it's the most important thing to remember here is these are his three buddies.
Just the thought of him dying and then sitting outside for 2 days in the cold. They died and then froze. They didn't freeze to death.
Interface. Yeah.
So obviously we've got 3 victims, we've got 3 families, and I don't want to speak too much to what their feelings are, but just from the media interviews, it seems like with McGinney, which is he's the one that has the fiance who found the bodies. It feels like McGinney's family, they feel like some foul play. From what I'm getting, and I don't want to quote them. That's kind of like the vibe that's with the interviews that we have. But we also have interviews from Ricky Johnson. I think this is his brother, one of the victims, Ricky Johnson. And just to show you, this is okay. We got Clayton McGee. Where's Ricky Johnson here? And so this is Ricky Johnson here. So some of the interviews we're going to see is from him. And then I think we have some interviews from McGinney, but mainly from Ricky Johnson's family. But like I said, there's been some interesting updates, just little nuggets here and there.
Yes, and you would think so, especially with something like this. And I'm not saying there was or was not a crime, but if you immediately suspect no foul play, then you should have a story. You should have something to tell the families. And for no one to hear anything, that doesn't make any sense. And I think that's one of the main reasons why this is getting so big.
So 2 things that you've said that I haven't heard before. One, you seem to know something about where these men were found that I haven't heard. What information do you have?
And yes, there's this interview and an even newer one by. So this is the brother, and then later on we're going to hear from the mother, I believe mother and father, and they actually, I think, give a little bit more details, a little more specific details involving where the bodies and the positions, which is very kind of interesting.
About specifically where they were in the backyard and how they were situated.
Well, I don't have firsthand knowledge, but I have heard because as being a brother, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at everything anybody posts, whether it's information I feel is useful or information I don't feel is useful. But information I did find.
Well, you also know who found them,
was
right? I mean, they were found by an extended family member. So you guys are in contact. So go ahead, tell the audience.
Yeah. So I believe David was found in a lawn chair on the back porch, rather than all 3 laying flat, which definitely paints a picture we did not have from the very beginning. And it definitely brings up some questions that you would have, especially with somebody that, I don't care who you are, where you live. If it's snowing outside, you're looking at how bad it's getting, especially if you have any type of responsibilities of leaving your house in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't matter if you work from home, you got to leave sometime. And from his lawyer, we don't know if he left or not, because he started out saying that he left the home sporadically throughout the day. And then another one where he was home for 50 hours with no leaving the house,
and they had
or looking
cars.
out a window.
And there were cars outside in front. And you have a feeling that an intoxicant was involved, and you know your brother, and this is not a judgment thing. I don't care how he liked to spend his free time. It's not what this is about. You believe that the answer here lies in something that your brother didn't know he was taking.
Just walk me through what you saw in that moment.
So basically, I was just going, turn off all my lights. I was getting ready for bed, locking the doors. I went to lock my front door, and I saw a woman come out of the backyard.
So I don't know if you guys have seen this. This is just some footage from that night. This is the neighbor across the street. Obviously, there's not a lot of footage, but apparently Willis originally was in handcuffs. And he mentions a woman because obviously he's across the street. He has no idea what's going on. I believe the female would be the fiancée, and I can't imagine what she'd be going through now, realizing what just happened, what she just discovered in that backyard. I can't imagine how terrible
On her
that would
phone, and
be.
she looked distressed because she kept looking back towards the house, and I thought it was weird. But I just moved in, so I really didn't know much, and so I just went back to my room. 10 minutes later, I saw an ambulance drive by, and I said, well, that's just weird. Something's going on. Went to the front room, looked out, and I saw that there was already 3 cop cars, and there was a man detained, and the woman was talking to the other police. And basically, I kind of watched that conspire for an hour or two. The man eventually left. The police searched the house.
A lot of times I'm hearing that David.
Okay, so this was an interview that came out, about a week and a half ago, approximately, about a week ago. And this is a friend of the group of men, or it may be a family member. I'm not sure. Let me know in chat. I think this is a friend. But anyway, he's talking about Jordan Willis, and this little interview was a bombshell. I mean, we kind of had suspicions that there was, some kind of drug cocktail, OD event going on, and maybe some other suspicious activity. And he just opened up a can of worms with this 2-minute interview.
David, Clayton, and Ricky were like brothers. Jordan was kind of off on the side.
Mm-hmm.
True?
Jordan's a chemist, bro.
Jordan's what?
Jordan's a chemist. They all knew him as that.
So he kind of speaks softly, but he just said Jordan is the chemist, referring to, obviously, the home renter, which is just kind of a bombshell. I mean, we knew that he's kind of a scientist, works from home, but he is now labeled the chemist, and he even goes into that this guy's been doing this kind of stuff for many years.
It was easy for them to go have fun, but he fucked up. He made a mistake. Jordan was the chemist. He's a scientist, right? He does what he needs to do. And now to use my cousin, my best friend, as a guinea pig? No.
What about Alex Lee? What do you know about him?
I know him.
Yeah? Any idea that he might have brought drugs?
Hell no.
No?
Jordan had him. Jordan was one.
So you don't think any more attention should be paid on Alex Lee?
Alex Lee is a good man. He's a good man.
So just to remind everybody, Alex Lee is the 5th, originally the unknown man, which obviously the only 2 people alive left in this situation is Jordan here up in the top left, and then Alex Lee, who obviously was close friends with the other 3, went to high school with them. Yeah, that's who he's talking about. And, he left early. But anyway, clearly Alex Lee, now, of course, he's lawyered up, so I doubt we're going to be getting any interviews or statements from Alex Lee. But it'd be interesting because he had to have seen. He would be like, if this went to court or something, he would be the big witness.
Alex Lee is a solid. He was one of their best friends forever. Jordan is somebody that is known from high school as like creating drugs for people to make them feel better in certain situations. Okay, well, you want to do this? Okay, I'm gonna make this for you. I'm gonna make this for you. I'm gonna make this for you, and handing them out.
Hmm.
The police are doing their job. If it takes time, it takes time. I will never tell them they're not doing what they should be doing. They're doing the best they can. It takes time because you want it to be correct at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I hope, is when at the end of the day it comes out correct.
And I agree with that. Hopefully everything, obviously from the consensus with the families, and obviously we're going to hear some more interviews. But, they always get asked, have you spoken to law enforcement? What are they saying? Are they communicating with you? And a lot of them are saying no. There's even one interview where they say, like, well, when we call in to check in, what's going on, we kind of get this annoyed tone from whoever they're speaking with, which is a little, I can't imagine that would be frustrating. But that seems to be kind of the census. It's really kind of hush-hush.
With 3 dead bodies just outside your window, how do you miss that?
All right, so we're going to have a little bit from Nancy Grace. I know some people may love her, people may hate her. At the end of the day, I like Nancy Grace. There's some things that she's done in the past been a little kind of weird, but overall, I do like her. Nancy Grace, I was really introduced to her with the Kaylee Anthony case, and I loved her. I loved watching her, when it came to Casey Anthony. I was always tuning in, way before the trial and everything, when they were still trying to find poor Kaylee. But anyway, so yeah, we got some stuff from Nancy Grace. We also have, like I said, some stuff from the family, and little tidbits as we go along. I just want to get to chat real quick. Gail Hurd gifting a Mob Crew membership, and it looks like Karen Lee, our wonderful mod, got the gifted membership. That is so awesome. Thank you so much, Gail. We have almost 600 people in here. Thank you guys so much. We do ask people, we appreciate people's opinions. We just have to be respectful. We don't. The last thing our mods want to do is block, any comments. We just ask, to be tasteful. And with that, we will continue.
Of course, I'm talking about the 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans found dead on the back porch and in the yard of friend Jordan Willis. But this morning, a sobering thought. Did the so-called friend, the homeowner, Jordan Willis, immediately pack up, move out, lawyer up, and check into rehab as part of an elaborate legal strategy to gain public sympathy and avoid potential jail time? I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Crime Stories and on Sirius XM 111. Of course, we are now learning that each of the victims out in the yard and on the friend's back porch in plain view from inside had lethal doses of fentanyl and more in their system. I'm talking about potentially 3 times a normal dosage.
So obviously, I hadn't covered the last time I covered this. The toxicology report hadn't been out. So now, if you hadn't heard, we kind of suspected fentanyl. We talked about it in our original show that it sounded like this may be a case of fentanyl being involved somehow. They had cocaine and fentanyl, and we're going to talk about those. I actually, because I really wanted to learn more just about fentanyl in general, because it is becoming a huge, huge problem. And we'll speak more on it as we go along, but it is a huge problem. And I don't want to get too ahead of myself because it's going to be talked about here in a bit, but I did watch a podcast where this guy, he wanted to learn about fentanyl, and he had this reporter actually go out to China, went to, befriended a guy that worked in a lab, a fentanyl lab. And they made other stuff as well. But yeah, he went out to China, befriended this guy who is kind of a chemist, and learned a lot of stuff about just why it's become so big. And, it's basically cheaper to make than heroin. And anyway, long story short, but I've got a lot of crazy details to share with you from just that podcast alone. I learned so much. It's crazy. And why fentanyl is such a big problem and how it's continuing to rise. We'll talk about that as we go along. But oh my gosh, the stuff that I learned from that podcast was really mind-blowing.
Or more. We have not seen the official toxicology report. We are getting this information from family. Now, again, no one has been named a POI, person of interest, or suspect in this case. All the while, the friend/homeowner remains behind closed doors in an alleged rehab facility. First of all, take a listen to this.
When Jordan Willis checked into rehab, family and close friends said he decided to tackle his addiction issue head-on after the wake-up call he got when 3 friends died outside his house. Retired.
So this is very interesting. So they're going to talk about why he did this. This is obviously a play because he got his attorney. And I had to skip a lot of this, this particular episode. I just cut it up in some pieces. But it's very fascinating because this is actually what a lot of prior actors, like Mel Gibson, he did the same thing. He got pulled over for some DUIs, obviously a big famous one. I was a big Mel Gibson fan back in the day before all of the shenanigans and the stuff he said, which really was terrible because, I was a huge fan growing up. Braveheart was one of my favorite movies growing up. Anyway, he checked into rehab. Then you have Charlie Sheen. And anyway, there's a reason they do this. And it's very interesting. And this all kind of comes back to possible charges coming up against this guy. It'll kind of come around full circle and it'll make sense here.
NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow tells Fox News Willis checking into rehab could be a preemptive move to get a shorter sentence if he is charged with a crime.
Early toxicology results indicate all 3 men found dead outside Jordan Willis's rented home had cocaine and fentanyl in their systems. According to WDAF, the families confirmed police have the initial toxicology reports. According to a family member, the level of drugs in their system is high, 3 times the amount of a lethal fentanyl dosage. And police say the case remains an ongoing death investigation.
And the facts seem to be revealing that the friend/homeowner may have had something to do with mixing the deadly drug cocktail. Is that true? What do we know? Listen.
Caleb McGinney says his cousin Clayton McGinney was his best friend. Caleb claims Jordan Willis has been known since high school as the chemist who would make drugs for the specific needs of the individual. McGinney also says that Ricky Johnson, Clayton McGinney, and David Harrington were all best friends. They all knew Jordan Willis from high school, but from a close-knit, quote, friendship standpoint, Jordan Willis was kind of off to the side.
The mysterious 5th man in the group on the night of the football watch party, Alex Lee, is a good man, according to Caleb. Asked if Lee might have brought drugs to the get-together, Caleb McGinney tells news media's hell no. McGinney also says he's not happy Jordan Willis used his cousin, his best friend, as a guinea pig, then effed up and made a mistake.
Yeah, obviously it's still a little early, but do I think this was like intentional? I don't think that, but still, if he supplied them with the stuff that ended up causing them to OD and their lives taken, he can still be charged with a crime. As a matter of fact, in Florida, which she's going to talk about here in a minute, you can get the death penalty, which is pretty wild. I just wanted to kind of read this statement here, because we've been talking about Fetty, which is kind of a slang term for fentanyl. When someone you love, like a partner or friend, dies from Fetty, it's devastating. I still haven't recovered because it's so unexpected. Sure, nothing in life can be taken for granted. John, thank you for sharing that story, and I am so sorry I can't imagine what that would be like. But yeah, we're going to talk about it a little bit more, but it is bad and it's growing. And like I said, I will share some of what I had learned from this podcast, and it blew my mind.
Let me go straight out. We got an all-star panel.
Well, real quick, we're over 630 people. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to tune in. I really, really appreciate it. If you could, please hit that like button. It's free. And there's also other ways to support this channel, donations and stuff like that. We really don't ask that much, but it does help the channel. But I do appreciate everybody taking the time to watch the show. If you're just tuning in, we're just kind of getting started. And there's a lot more we're going to learn. We're going to learn more a little bit about the dogs. Were the dogs there or not? What's the strategy with the rehab and everything? And there is a reason for that. And the charges that he could face. And like I said, there's some very interesting stuff coming up
with us right now. But let me go first to Grace Smith out of Kansas City, KCTV5, picking up all your belongings, moving out of the house, lawyering up, and shaking into rehab.
It is so easy to get people to talk about stuff they should not talk to police about. So if you can encounter that individual somewhere, even if he's in rehab, remember, that's not protected speech in rehab. And so the result is that if he runs his mouth and he indicates that he was the supplier, in Florida, you'd be subject to the death penalty. And that's recent in Florida, but they take it real seriously here. So any providing of narcotics or drugs to someone that results in a death, you're on the hook for not just a life felony, but for execution.
Guys, it's PR strategy. Thank you for being with us. How many times have you seen
And yeah, so we just talked about that earlier. So that's obviously an attorney. I think that was an attorney. Just kind of talking about how that is kind of a strategy for a defendant who may be facing charges. We don't know, but there's some stipulation that it could once we figure out the toxicology and the autopsy. Everything kind of comes together, and then whatever other evidence they may have found. Obviously, I'm sure Alex Lee is going to be a huge witness that they're going to have to call in. Whether he talks or not, I guess, is going to be interesting.
A defendant, a suspect.
Let me grab this real quick. White Rump, neighbor close by, at Chris. Thank you for all you do. I tell everyone I know about you and your channel. Thank you so much. That is so sweet. Thank you for your $5 super chat. You are so awesome. Hope you're doing well, staying warm, and I really, really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
A person of interest, anyone, whether they're a suspect or not, get in hot water, get in trouble, and immediately rush to rehab.
Oh, it's pretty much, a common play, in a defense handbook. To me, it's defense lawyer 101 ploy. And, you have to understand, a lot of times the defense has to have time, just like investigators have to have time to find out what's going on and formulate a defensive plan for their client. And I think that's exactly what's going on here. I think that he thinks that if he's locked away in rehab, they're not going to have access to him. He's not going to be interrogated further. He's not going to have immediate exposure to law enforcement that they can, pry deeper into everything that's going on with this situation.
Wow.
And Dale Carson brought it up regarding attorney-client confidentiality, physician-patient confidentiality.
Yeah, this is fascinating too. This is another strategy for going into rehab, which he's going to talk about. Very fascinating. Is that because he's in rehab, he's kind of with it like a physician or a lawyer, where what he says is confidential, client privilege. Whereas obviously, if he didn't go to rehab and he, he moves and then he goes, hangs out with some friends and then kind of tells them the story or his side of the story, that could be used against him. But if he's at rehab, apparently he's covered by a kind of a client, a privilege attorney, which is something new to me.
Whatever you say to a psych or a counselor in rehab would be protected. But if you're saying it in a group or you say it to your roommate or your bunkie, that is not protected under the Constitution. Joining me now, renowned medical examiner. I believe you heard me state, dummy down.
Okay. And like I said, here in about 5 minutes, we're going to, because I have a little bit of Nancy Grace, and then I'm going to switch over to an interview with the family, the mother of one of the victims, and they kind of talk about some interesting things. And then they also talk about the dogs, because, it's been a question, were the dogs there? Because, if the dogs were there, obviously there's a 48, almost literally exact 48-hour period from when they were kind of last seen until the bodies were found. And so, if the dogs were there, they would need to be taken care of. They got to go potty, especially you have more than one dog. You would think there would be a mess if they weren't taken out. So, very interesting questions. But anyway, segue. She is asking this professional about what is the lethal dose of fentanyl. For those that are not, I know of fentanyl, but I don't know, how potent it is. I know it can come in like a form of white powder, but this guy's going to talk about how deadly it is and how minute of fentanyl can kill you. And he describes it right here, and it is absolutely mind-blowing.
Nanogram, milliliter. What are you saying? If I had a teaspoon, what would go in there to be a lethal dose of fentanyl? Is fentanyl a liquid? Is it a powder? What is it? What does it look like? And what's a legal dose? Listen, you've been dealing with experts and doctors. You need to talk to me, regular people. What's a lethal dose?
I'm going to tell you that if you look at grains of salt,
that I can understand. A grain of salt. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes. In an empty teaspoon, 3 or 4 crystals, 3 or 4 grains of salt will knock a 70-kilogram or 120-pound man dead in 6 minutes.
Okay, stop.
Dead in 6 minutes. So you pour a little bit of salt into a teaspoon. 3 of those flakes can literally kill you. That's how deadly it is. 3 little flakes. So when you hear when they talk about it professionally, not in layman's terms, they talk about nanograms because they have to, really break it down because it is so potent. That is so mind-blowing. And he's going to talk a little bit more about that. And then, like I said, we'll get into some other stuff with the interview. Criminal Med, member for 17 months now. That is so awesome. Criminal Med, I really appreciate you. You've been here with a lot of lives. I do really appreciate it. I know sometimes we may disagree on some stuff, but I love it because, may disagree on one case, but we agree on others. And I really appreciate it. Remain open-minded. The big fish will be traced. And yeah, I respect your opinion. Obviously it's still a little early, and we may, I'm sure we'll learn more as we go along here. Let me just grab this, June. And I'm so sorry that your stuff's happening with your comments. Thanks for all your hard work, Chris and mods. Love your videos. Thank you so much, June, for the $1.99 super chat. You are so sweet. Thank you so much. And Gail Hurd with another gifted Mob Crew membership. Looks like Truth Seeker was gifted the membership. That is so awesome. Gail's been handing those out. That is so awesome. Thank you so much, Gail. Let me just get caught up so that we can keep going here. Also, Southern Gal with the gifted Mob Crew membership. Thank you so much, Southern Gal. That is very sweet of you. Chris, there is a graphic that shows the tiny bit of fetty that kills compared to a penny. Oh, interesting. If we get time, we'll have to look at that.
Wait. That's almost too much to believe. Let me understand what you just said. Guys.
Yeah.
Stay with me, please. I've got one of the world's foremost experts on opioid crises and fentanyl. Dr. William Maroney, I understand that you just said 3 specks, 3 crystals, like 3 salt crystals.
There is.
Would knock a grown man flat.
In 6 minutes, dead.
6 minutes.
Why do we even make fentanyl? Why is there even fentanyl? Why is it here? If it only takes 3 salt crystals worth to kill a grown man, why does it even exist?
Cheaper to make.
In the drug pipeline, the changeover for profits eliminated heroin because fentanyl is so much more profitable, and fentanyl is a synthetic.
Okay, again,
dummy it down. You make
are you
synthetic
saying
in a
fentanyl's
factory.
cheaper than heroin? Fentanyl is cheaper to make than heroin. Is that what you're
10
saying?
times. 1,000
Okay,
times.
just say it like that.
1,000 times cheaper. Yeah.
Crazy.
Why is fentanyl so cheap to make? And are pharmaceutical companies still making it?
Well, they
Patches.
make it for patches for hospice patients. But the reason why heroin has to be grown in a third world country, heroin has to be cultivated.
You mean poppies?
Then it's sent to, yes. Then it's sent to France or Mexico and it's processed. This is labor. This is transportation.
As opposed
and then there can be
to
interdiction.
somebody like...
As opposed to somebody makes it in a factory,
Like on Breaking
in a
Bad,
warehouse.
out in the desert, in a mobile home, you can cook up
Absolutely.
fentanyl.
In patch form 1 to
The
2.
responsiveness
Okay,
of Jordan Willis.
So just to kind of get a break from Nancy Grace, because I know some people it's a little much, but so here is the family members of Ricky Johnson. They've been, for the most part, the ones who've been in the media, that particular family. The others have as well, but this Ricky Johnson's family, it seems like they've been kind of, at least been doing more interviews that I can find. But this is a very interesting interview, not very long. But we learned a couple of details about this. A little bit more about how the bodies were found, and also the dog situation. And then we'll talk about the dog situation. It's kind of interesting because, you know, we heard reports that the dog was there, but then no, his parents would watch it, you know, occasionally. So there was kind of back and forth on whether the dogs were there or not. And from what they understand, they have a good answer.
Right? Because you had people banging on his door, nothing happened, and the part that bothers you is that something changed when police showed up, Linda. What changed?
I don't know what changed. I don't know why he would hear the police and not hear the people that had been there just prior. It's like he's acting. He's just trying to seem like I didn't hear anything before this, and now that the police are here, I suddenly hear everything that's going on.
Somebody was so worried about what had happened when they couldn't find their loved one that they went into the house never encountered Jordan Willis, but you say that from their perspective, they saw out on the back patio, from the room where the guys were supposedly hanging out and the couch where supposedly Jordan Willis may or may not have fallen asleep, they could see one of the men in a chair on the patio. Is that right?
That's my understanding, yes. She saw that house right away, or she saw that body out on the back patio right away because it was sitting up. It was not laying down on the ground.
And it obviously raised your concern about how could this time go by and their friend not notice them out there.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, 2 days with cars parked out front. When you got big dogs that you let in and out of the house to go to the restroom, how could you not see what was out there?
So if you didn't understand, this poor guy's got to speak with the thing. He said that, how did Willis not notice these two vehicles out in front of his house? And then here they're talking about the dogs who have to be let out to go to the bathroom. And like you said, Cuomo will ask him, like, well, we've heard conflicting stories. And so we get an answer to this, which I found very fascinating.
I understand the suspicion. I don't know.
Oh, I wanted to pause this real quick. Angie, this is kind of interesting. And this goes into, like I said, I have some really interesting stuff to share towards the end here about what I learned from the podcast, just specifically on fentanyl and stuff. The docs I work for use medical grade F, which is, what we're talking about, Fetty, at our hospital for procedures. Colonoscopies, I think, is what you're saying, etc. for anesthesia. Yeah, so I heard, so if anybody doesn't know why they made fentanyl in the first place, one of the things that I learned from this podcast is that they made fentanyl because some of the other anesthetics or anesthesias, I'm sorry if I'm not using the correct medical term, but stuff to knock you out. There are certain surgeries that, you may not be in there for very long. Maybe you're, I'm just quoting, I don't know, maybe 3 hours or less, whereas maybe something else is much longer. So, and I may be completely off on that. Maybe it's an hour. But anyway, the story is fentanyl was starting to be used for like open heart surgery where they're not in there for very long, which is weird because you'd think open heart surgery would be kind of a long procedure. But anyway, fentanyl was coming out and being used for surgeries that were quick because fentanyl is, although very potent, it's very fast acting and it goes away pretty quickly. So hopefully that kind of explains stuff. But thank you, Angie. That's very interesting to hear that.
I don't understand the situation with the dogs, Linda. I've heard one dog. I've heard two dogs. I've heard they were home. I've heard they weren't home. What have you guys heard?
I've heard the 2 dogs were home.
And that's why, Ricky Sr., you're saying... So if he had the dogs, either he didn't let them out, which would mean that house would be a mess after 2 days, or he was letting them out. And how do you explain that?
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
So they said, and I think she'll confirm it here again, but yeah, they said that the neighbors did see the dogs. So yeah, there is a doggy door, and we'll look at that. And so I guess he could still get away with maybe not going to the back porch and letting them out because they have the doggy door, so he wouldn't have seen the bodies. So, I mean, you could have that side of the argument.
I believe he knew it. He was trying to cover everything up.
Well, but then, Linda, it takes us to another obvious situation. If this is all so obvious and curious, the story doesn't make sense. You must know something more. The police don't seem to share the.
Wow.
The mystery surrounding the deaths of 3.
So anyway, that was just a short but very interesting. We kind of learned a little bit more about the bodies and the position. I mean, it's nothing huge, but apparently David Harrington, and I do have a little video representation where the bodies were kind of found. I mean, it's not exact, of course, because we don't have those exact details, but apparently he's sitting in the lawn chair, kind of upright. And definitely like to get your guys' thoughts, and we'll kind of ask the community here in a minute, what scenarios you guys think may have happened. But so here's a few little bit, but I wanted to read this real quick. Angela says, and thank you, Angela, for commenting, because she says she doesn't comment much. I was given fentanyl in the hospital to stop contracting and have my baby at 5 months. Wow. Yeah, that's a little early. In 2000, so 24 years ago, they don't use it. Don't use it anymore for that. Interesting. And thank you for sharing that. And that's another interesting one. Fent is used for an anesthesia because it puts you in a coma as opposed to merely sleeping. We react to stimulus and pain in our sleep, but not when comatose. Interesting. And yeah, we're going to definitely talk about that for a little bit when we get a chance. Criminal Med is coming from China. Yeah, like I said, this podcast that I watched earlier today really just blew my mind. But yeah, you're exactly right. It's coming from China, and then it goes to Mexico, and then it comes from Mexico into Texas, California, and then of course it branches out. Olivia, I think I missed yours. Member for 5 months. Thank you so much, Olivia. You're so sweet. Thank you, Chris, mods and chat. Such a great group. Yes, we have an amazing community, and I thank you guys so much because it's you guys that make up the community, and you guys are so amazing. Okay, make sure I haven't missed anything. All right, we're gonna continue. There's some things from Nancy Grace and
men who died outside in the cold, while a 4th friend slept for 2 days in the house, just took another odd turn. The brother of one of the deceased men, Ricky Johnson, says the way the men were found has him wondering what happened. One body was discovered on the back porch by police, while the 2 other deceased men were found in the backyard. According to Jonathan Price, David Harrington was found on a lawn chair on the back porch, rather than all 3 men laying flat. Paints a picture they didn't have from the beginning.
Renowned psychologist joining me from Manhattan, Karen Stark, TV radio trauma expert and consultant at KarenStark.com. That's Karen with a C, in case you're trying to get in touch with her. Karen, I learned this really the hard way in court. I managed to save the case, but every detail matters. At first we heard that one victim was lying prone on the back porch and the other 2 were out in a garden in the backyard. Now the brother of one of the victims has pointed out that the back porch victim was sitting in a lounge chair. Now, does it make a difference? I don't know. But I do know this, Karen Stark, every single detail is important. Because there were reports that the 3 had been dragged to the backyard and to the back porch. But who would drag a 200 plus?
There's no way. We've obviously, if you're familiar with, if you've been kind of an OG of the channel, we usually have a former forensic detective, Steve, on. Great channel, True Crime Web. Shout out to him. Definitely go check him out. My mods can put a link to his channel. But dragging bodies, dead weight, is no joke. You may be able to drag, maybe a 200-pound body by the legs, but you're not carrying them around. You're not going to put them in the chair. you would need more than one person.
Pound man and then prop him up in a lounge chair. I mean, every fact matters, Karen Stark. And right now, these families are grappling with the facts. Is this a case of 4, possibly 5 guys celebrating, partying, drinking, doing some cocaine that's laced with fentanyl? Can Maroney explain? Can cocaine laced with fentanyl have that much fentanyl that it kills you? Was it the reverse? But about the details, Karen, why are they so important when we're grappling with who's telling the truth? What happened to these guys? Was it an accident? Was it more nefarious? Why'd this guy rush off, get a lawyer, and check into rehab? Details matter, Karen Stark.
And that's lit up.
So how would it appear, Dr. William Maroney?
It's going to look like powder sugar, and it's in small plastic square packets that fold over.
So while
and
we are
people will put it
go ahead,
in
please.
spoons and put it in their nose. People that want to get high with cocaine, we've been injecting cocaine for decades. But traditionally, good old boys, football fans, big tough guys, they snort this stuff while they're drinking. It would be interesting to see what's the blood alcohol level with this, because then it'll tell you that it's a casual timeline, a chronological drug delivery that begins with alcohol, goes to cocaine, and surprisingly, there's fentanyl in the cocaine. But we've seen this all across America. We've seen fentanyl in cocaine for almost a decade in New York, Boston, Baltimore, Detroit, Chicago. And people are afraid of it.
So
that's why they make fake pills.
It would also be very interesting, Barry Hutchins Sr., former LE and owner.
In regards to a crime scene, there's a rule that's...
Okay, so he's going to talk about the crime scene, but I want to just add on to a little bit of the fentanyl talk and just the origins and some of the stuff. And we got a little bit more, excuse me. Let me just make sure, get up to chat. Oh, I just wanted to read. Clat says, they gave it to my mother when she had heart... TAVR, maybe transplant, replacement. I asked the nurse what she was injecting, what it was. When she said fentanyl, I swallowed hard. Oh my gosh. I hope everything went well with your mother and everything's fine. But yeah, exactly. I just said that earlier, you know, in the thing that I watched, it was really amazing. And yeah, the first thing that the guy that made this, as a matter of fact, the guy that made fentanyl, the same guy that made fentanyl, he actually made Imodium, which is, I think, for diarrhea or like stomach issues. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with Imodium. The guy that made Imodium is the same guy that made fentanyl, which is kind of wild. And obviously, I'm sure when he made fentanyl, he was just making it, you know, obviously, I doubt he wanted this to happen. You know, he was just trying to help make it so surgery, because he noticed patients were being very sick because they were, you know, injecting with something else that was longer lasting. And so, you know, they were kind of out for longer and they get up and really, you know, it takes them a while to get back and recuperate. He wanted to make something that, you know, after they had the surgery, you know, like heart surgery or whatever, that, you know, they would wake up and they wouldn't be as so bad and they'd be kind of able to recover faster, you know, not like physically, but, you know, as far as like, you know, the side effects of medication. And that was kind of the purpose. But anyway, now they're making it in China, at all these little factories. And it basically goes from these factories and then it goes to, of course, Mexico. And then from there, it goes to the borders and then it comes into the States. But just a couple of things that are pretty wild is that obviously cocaine has been adulterated, which means, you know, the Coke where it's pure, maybe when it's in Mexico, obviously then it gets adulterated where obviously additives get put in. You're not getting the pure product of Coke. And now, since it's easier, so much cheaper to make than heroin and such a big profit margin that they decided, to start putting this out on the streets compared to heroin because it's just much cheaper. And anyway, involving with the Coke is that they just cut it with the Coke because it's white powder. One of the forms is white powder. And yeah, of course, now it's leading to major ODs. Gail Hurd with another Mob Crew membership. Thank you so much, Gail. That is so awesome. I really appreciate you and the support here. Just seeing what kind of stories here. And I've got some more really kind of scary things with when it comes to fentanyl. Some statistics, and I'll share those after we listen to this guy here. But let me just see if there's anything else in chat here. Folding up dollar bill squares, using bills to carry fent. Oh yeah. Oh gosh. And then of course money gets transferred around. Yeah, gosh. Yeah, money can be one of the most dirty. Who knows what could be on any bill that you receive. The chemist is a nickname. That's what the friends called him. Oh, yeah, you're talking about Jordan Willis. Yeah. Wow, you got fentanyl when you had nose surgery. Yeah, so that would make sense. Nose surgery, that sounds like it'd be a pretty quick procedure. And yeah, that's why that guy had created it to, make it so patients could wake up faster without being groggy and all that stuff. All right, so we're moving on. We've got about another 10, 15 minutes here, and then we'll kind of recap everything at the end. I still have some stats that are going to blow some people's minds when it comes to deaths related to fentanyl. Really bad. But here is I think a former detective talking about the crime scene and stuff.
Very prevalent, and that is that something is always left at a crime scene and something is always taken away from a crime scene.
That's an interesting statement. So he says that there's, at the average crime scene, that there's usually something left at the crime scene and something taken from the crime scene. Love to get Steve's thoughts on that, but kind of interesting statement.
Visual evidence. So I think certainly that a drug dog could have been used. I haven't heard that a drug dog could have been used, and I don't know what kind of search even took place at the house because that hasn't been made public here that I know of. But certainly I think that the Kansas City Police Department and the Platte County Prosecutor's Office are looking at every angle as far as searching everything. And you touched on something earlier I think is really important as well, getting back to the defense lawyer and this subject moving out of the house as the homeowner right away. My personal belief is that that's done deliberately so that they can come back later and say that if something is recovered in the house after the fact, from like this date forward, that they can, after the fact of this guy moving out, and they can, that can be argued to a jury to where they could say, they only need one person to not believe the prosecution's story, as to what happened. And so I think that they're deliberately putting things in place here that could stumble a jury, later on in anticipation of prosecution of this case.
And moving out so quickly, lock, stock, and barrel, gets rid of Who knows how much evidence? And of course, Dr. Maroney, when you put dishes in the dishwasher and turn it on, there goes all the evidence all freezing.
It's a great state. That's so true.
Well, I agree that there's no way anybody froze there. I lived in Kansas City for 12 years. It gets cold a little bit, but it's warmer during the day, and it's not as cold as Chicago. That's off the table. But everybody that gets real close to a fentanyl overdose, and I see non-fatal.
So this is very interesting. Very interesting. This is kind of, he's trying to kind of talk about what he's experienced in ODs, usually relating to fentanyl, and what the people around that particular incident, whoever's experiencing the overdose or whatever, what people do to try to help that person. And this is very fascinating.
Overdoses. They come in, they talk to me, they enter into treatment in my clinic, so they're non-fatal overdoses. And then I see the fatal overdoses when we go to autopsy and we work with the pathologist and the police try to reconstruct it. Everybody that's around a fatal overdose tries to get them cold air. And if you feel yourself falling out, you look for cold, fresh air. So they could have been in the house, and it sounds good that they would have went out to smoke, but if they would have felt the fentanyl kicking in, they would have said, I need some fresh air. Kind of like when you're in that bar all night long and it's smoky and it's hot and you had a little too much to drink. You step outside, that cold air, it straightens you up right away when you're drinking alcohol. It does not straighten you up with fentanyl, but you seek something cold, and if you think you're going to fall out, you sit down, you look for a chair, you lean up against a car, and sometimes on death scenes and crime scenes, the people around the person that's overdosing throw them in a cold shower.
Right.
So that's what people seek. That is the other reason why they would have been outside. They felt they were going to fall out. They started feeling sleepy. They couldn't think. They were drooling. It was difficult to breathe. So you step outside to get something to straighten up before you fall out.
And
that makes sense. Obviously I was never a big drug user. I was, I've explained this before. I was a pothead for over a decade. But I functioned well. If you're familiar with pot, you've done it, which is now legal in a lot of states to a degree. But obviously, when I was using it, was not. Different times. It's kind of crazy to think about. But anyway, I functioned fine. But I wasn't much of a drinker, but when I turned 21, of course, I did kind of go through a phase for a couple of years where I did drink a little bit. But I always liked pot because it was, I could function, I could work, I could do my job, whatnot. But anyway, besides the point. But yeah, I remember, bars. I'm sure many could relate to this where, maybe you're at a bar and maybe you had a little much, or just maybe the scene is really heavy, and then you go out and man, you hit that fresh cold air, especially if it's kind of colder out. Really kind of wakes you back up. And so was that maybe what they were doing?
Dr. Maroney, you and I have talked about this
100
times before.
Oh, that's a great question.
It's elementary. It was even in The Wizard of Oz. Remember when Dorothy fell asleep, right? In the poppy field? Snow.
She made herself comfortable.
Snow had to wake her up. The cold woke her up.
Exactly right.
They
seek the cold to straighten up.
So was the culprit, is the guilty culprit in the death of 3 Kansas City Chiefs fans, all 3 best friends, all too common? A fentanyl OD. Did you hear Dr. William Maroney? Trust me, if he says it about fentanyl or opioids, it's right. That 3 grains, like grains of salt, are enough to kill a grown man? Is that the culprit, the all too common culprit, the killer in America and in this case? But we've got another problem. Take a listen to Nicole Parton, Crime Online, Cut 3-2.
Caleb McGinney says his cousin Clayton McGinney was his best friend. Caleb claims Jordan Willis has been known since high school as the chemist who would make drugs for the specific needs of the individual. McGinney also says that Ricky Johnson, Clayton McGinney, and David Harrington were all best friends. They all knew Jordan Willis from high school, but from a close-knit, quote, friendship standpoint, Jordan Willis was kind of off to the side.
Does anybody remember the incredibly popular
Likely he was charged with manslaughter in other states, possibly second-degree murder.
Many family members of the three victims are hearing none of it. Listen.
Harrington's girlfriend of 17 years flat out says David was murdered. Those three guys were murdered. The Kansas City police said from the very beginning the deaths are not being investigated as a homicide, but Lori Cruz says her boyfriend of 17 years did not use drugs and that he was murdered.
Since early in the investigation, police have said the case is not being investigated as foul play, but some of the loved ones of the deceased believe Willis played a role in their deaths. John Harrington, father of David Harrington, whose body was found on the open porch, said that he and David's mother both are convinced that Jordan Willis played a part in the deaths.
With conflicting reports about what really happened that night, to you, Dr. William Maroney, can you assume that if there was a report indicating 3 times the level of a deadly...
So anyway, here is video of the backyard, and yeah, as we zoom in here, we do see a doggy door. So in theory, I guess if the doggy door, doesn't have any kind of block on it or anything, and it's functioning, I guess I should say, and the dogs use that, then I guess maybe he does have an excuse that he did work, but he didn't go look outside. But man, look how many windows. And I'd be curious to know, like, what bedroom, are any of these windows, is that a guest bedroom, or is this, the master bedroom where Jordan Willis stayed, like where he could see outside? I'm assuming the kitchen and dining room got to be somewhere nearby these windows here. I mean, a lot of windows that look out into this yard here. And especially if Harrington was supposedly just sitting, here I just kind of have a little reenaction. I mean, this is David Harrington. He's the one that supposedly found sitting upright here. And then the two guys, I'm not sure exactly, we don't know exactly where they're found, but they were found, we hear the word garden used, that they were nearby the garden. I see some planter boxes here, so I don't know if that's kind of considered a garden or whatnot, but curious to know. I wonder, a couple of things I wonder is, were any of them smokers? And then obviously was weed involved, but we've heard cocaine and fentanyl, and obviously cocaine and fentanyl, the cocaine that's coming in is being adulterated, which means it's being tampered with. You're not getting the original product because they can cut it up, put other stuff in, and that way they can sell a lot more. And then with the fentanyl, they can cut that in since it's white powder. And, but yeah, that seems to be the thing that's kind of going around. And then, yeah, also found in weed. Another big issue is what they've been doing as well as they've been putting fentanyl in pills. They just use, a pill machine, where they just put the fentanyl into a pill that looks like, let's say, a Vicodin 10 or an Oxycontin or whatever. I don't think they make Oxycontin anymore, but just examples, some of those heavier opiates. And so they can make the pill look just like the pill, but really that pill is not, hydrocodone or whatever. It's really fentanyl. And they do that, which is very, very scary. Yes, that's right. THC was in there. Thank you for reminding me. I did see that report, or a report with that. So that it seems like there was THC, obviously alcohol, but the two big ones, cocaine and fentanyl, which is just, obviously that's just a cocktail recipe for a disaster. But I mean, with fentanyl, obviously, that's going to be bad. So anyway, let me take a sip, catch up, chat, and I'll just talk about a little bit about the fentanyl that I had learned from this podcast that really blew my mind, and it's really scary. And hopefully they do something to crack down on this, because it is becoming one of the biggest killers in the U.S. Compared to some other things, which is absolutely mind-blowing. So just recap, I wrote some notes down so I can kind of remind myself, but apparently in 2014, there was only 700 deaths related to fentanyl overdoses. Only 700 in the U.S., from what I understand. Then in 2015, it ramped up. And in the last few years, according to one study, people between the age of 17 and 45, their death-related fentanyl killed more in that category between 17 and 45-year-olds. It killed more in the last, I'm not sure how many years, more than guns, more than COVID, and more than cancer. Obviously not combined, but that's what the statistics said between this, obviously, specific age group between, I think, like 17 and 45. But that is scary. That is scary. More than cancer, more than guns, and more than COVID when it comes to fentanyl ODs. Absolutely wild. But one more time, fentanyl was created by a guy, I forget his name, but obviously he made it for like heart surgery patients so that it could just have a quicker turnover rate because it didn't last long in the system. So that way, after the heart surgery, since it's not that long, they would wake up quicker. This guy also made Imodium, which is very well known. I'm sure a lot of people have probably used Imodium. It's the same guy that created Imodium, created fentanyl. And it's basically, it comes from China. It's produced mainly in China. And since it's a synthetic, it can be technically made anywhere if you can get a hold of the right ingredients. Apparently, it's legal. That's why it's made in China. And then it comes to Mexico. And then, of course, it gets tampered with, or adulterated is the word they use, and then it comes from Texas, California, and spreads out. And just absolutely tragic. But it is a huge epidemic when it comes to fentanyl. So at the end of the day, just curious, let me know your thoughts. Do you think... I don't think this guy, Jordan Willis, did this on purpose. It seems like maybe he just wanted to give them a good good high or something, and maybe it was more than he realized. Obviously there's so many things, but I don't think this was done in a malicious way or a nefarious way. But still, he can still be charged. If he supplied this to them, he still can be charged. And depending on, what states he's in, the penalties are different. So let me get to chat. But yeah, let me know in chat. Do you guys think? Do you think they went out like Nancy was talking about with the specialist? Like, they started feeling the effects, and so they walked outside to kind of, or kind of get that cold, fresh air to kind of maybe kind of sober them up, wake them up. And unfortunately, two of them collapsed in the garden, and the other guy maybe sat in the lawn chair to kind of, relax. And then, from what we understand, is that the levels that they took, it most likely killed them within 6 minutes. I mean, obviously, we don't know all of the circumstances of what they took before, because I'm sure that would play a part in, how fast or slow, the overdose would have taken place. Captain Howdy's in here. Good to see you, buddy. I hope you're doing well. So glad that your channel's back up, buddy. I hate to see that. He says, hello, Mob Crew. Hope you're all having a good evening. Same to you, buddy, man, as always. And maybe one day, I know you don't do interviews or anything, but man, it'd be great to just maybe one time, if you ever get a chance, email me. I'd love to just shoot the shit, even if it's just through an email. But I hope you're doing well, and I'm so glad that your channel's back up and running, buddy. Makes amazing content. And if you want to check him out, he covers Delphi. He's been kind of covering a little bit of everything here recently, but definitely somebody who inspired me to do what I do now. So let's see. I just wanted to see your thoughts here. And I'll just play this backyard here. Let me turn this down. But this is the backyard here. Madeline says, I think Jordan could have passed away if he hadn't passed out inside if he partook in consuming party favors. Yeah, I mean, it seems like he had made taken something, but, if he's the chemist, I'm assuming he probably, I don't know. Like, you would seem he knows, what he's taken, and he's familiar with that. Oh, actually, let me just show you guys this. Just kind of interesting. So this is a website here, which meet the IAVI scientists applying new and emerging technologies to one of the toughest challenges facing HIV vaccine researchers today. Here it says, Jordan R. Willis, PhD, Senior Principal Scientist at the Antibody Center in Kansas City, Missouri. And there's Jordan right there. What is the focus of your work? Give some details about that. And it's kind of wild. It talks about some different things. There's some questions. And then at the bottom here, it says, they ask, something about him. And he talks about, my two dogs are named Sadie and Daisy. I take them to go for walks for the park. I even name my software packages after them. So kind of interesting. There's a little website that's got his kind of background and some stuff there. That gentleman, Alex, who left at midnight, said everybody was alive when Jordan left the house. I think Alex may have been there, but this story gets weirder every day. Yeah. Now, according to close family members, they say Alex is a great man, even though he has lawyered up. I'm assuming, that way, if he were to tell some stories to his friend, I'm sure he lawyered up that way. His lawyer says don't say a single thing about what's going on, because if you're talking to friends, family, anything could be used against you, or whatever. So, I am DeBear says, well, Alex lawyered up too fast in my opinion. I guess there's two sides to that for sure. But I think at the end of the day, it's for his protection. So anything that he had said to his family or friends, like I just said, could be used against him if this goes to like a trial or whatever. Yes, remember, Chiefs play the Super Bowl Sunday, Chris. Go Chiefs. Got a lot of Chiefs fans in here. I don't have any stake on either way, but I do love the Super Bowl and excited to watch it. Yeah, it's this Sunday. Super Bowl this Sunday. Sharon says, I think it was a tragic accident. I think at the end of the day, I think so. But still, if he's the one that supplied it to them, I'm assuming there is got to be some kind of charge, but whatever that is, remains to be seen at this time. But I really appreciate everybody tuning in. We had nearly about 700 people in here. Again, if you haven't, please hit that like button. It really helps. I do appreciate anybody that's donated. And I'm going to just make sure I didn't miss anybody before we go. Oh, and I did. Criminal Man, I'm sorry I missed something earlier because I'm paying. Laugh out loud. Thank you so much, Criminal. You're amazing. I appreciate your opinions. We do like to hear both sides, Fur Baby Love, thank you for all the work you do. Thank you so much for the $1.99. You are so sweet. Sorry I missed these ones in the beginning. Olivia, I think I saw yours. Thank you so much. Who is this person? Oh, D. Christina says you need to stand up. Yes, I do. D has been a member for 18 months now. That's so amazing. Her and all my other mods are so amazing. Please share some love to my wonderful mods who do an amazing job. And I think, June, here we go. 5 months with you fine folks. Thank you so much for sticking out with us and your continued support. June, again, with the $4.99. Thank you so much, June. You have been so sweet and awesome. And so I have a few questions before people go. One of the things that I was thinking about is... obviously the trial is going on for Adam Montgomery, who is the biggest POS ever. Along with the CPS in that state, who really let Harmony Montgomery down. We have covered this case back in the day, and I was wondering what you guys think about. Definitely not going to do like a live show where we're just watching the trial the entire time, because obviously that's going to be 9 hour lives. But I was thinking maybe doing recaps at the end of the day. So let me know in the chat and also in the comments what you think, if you would like me to do updates on the Adam Montgomery case, which, man, it is a tough trial because of what they did to that poor girl is so just the worst. So that's why I'm asking people, because just like Elf said, can't watch that trial. I totally understand. I broke down a couple times just watching it. It's tough that somebody could do that to their own daughter. Is just unfathomable. And there's a special place in hell for someone like him. So let me know. Yeah, I know, and that's why I'm asking, because definitely a lot of people are tuned into it. But I thought maybe I could do recaps where it's not too graphic, obviously, but just get the highlights. But yeah, we'll see what you guys say. But that's something I've been kind of looking into. Chris says that would be great because I can't watch hours long lives, and you have closed caption. Thank you so much, Chris. I always think of you, Chris, when it comes to switching on that closed caption, and anybody that has kind of a hearing hearing issue. Let's see. Oh, I can't go up anymore. Anyways, I think we are gonna finish up here. Jennifer says she likes that. Okay. Kath McNally says, thank you, Chris. I have lost a cousin to fentanyl. I will never get over it. Oh my goodness. I am so sorry, McNally. My prayers to you and your family. Yeah, I hope they do something about fentanyl. It seems to be a huge pandemic, and it's just growing at a crazy rate because it's just so easy to make. It's cheap. It's cheaper than heroin. It's actually far beyond competing with heroin because it just costs more to make heroin. And there were some more disturbing things, even though there's deaths, because the big question is, well, why do dealers want a drug out there where their product is killing people? And they were saying that, a lot of these, not a lot, because I don't want to speak for heroin users because I've never done it and I don't know, but from what the consensus is that apparently these heroin users know that and know that they can only get this kind of fentanyl stuff, but even though that they know that there's deaths, it's like they're chasing that death high or something. I don't know. It's messed up. Really just mind-blowing. Very sad. So Criminal Med, for anyone affected by these things. Thank you, Criminal. Very sweet. I see a lot of people saying some very sweet things. I wish I could get to everybody. Yeah, same. So, we'll see how the consensus goes with that. And like I said, if we do cover it, we'll, obviously we're not going to deep dive the details of her, but I know it's going to be brought up. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll see what we do. But there's plenty of stuff that we can cover. But anyway, I'm rambling on. Again, thank you guys so much. It's a Friday night. You guys are taking the time out of your day to watch the show. I really appreciate it. We will be doing more live shows. Also, I'm going to still try to do more short story stuff. Also, another way to support the channel is Patreon. I'm going to be doing something again for Patreon this week. I did something last week where I did a sneak peek of my Idaho 4 case breakdown. People really enjoyed that, so I will be doing that again. So with that, I think we'll end it there, and we'll play an outro. And I do got to do some makeup lives. So mods, I may be on tomorrow. I may be probably picking up some extra days because February, even though it is leap year, so we have 29 days instead of 28. This is my income, so I may be doing some more lives. So just kind of warn you guys, and I'll email you guys. But I'll probably be doing a live tomorrow, probably an hour earlier. So thank you guys so much. I love you guys. Be safe. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Stay warm for those that are out there in the winter. And we're gonna go ahead and play the outro, and we will see you guys. want to do a live tomorrow, so we'll most likely see you guys tomorrow.